Welcome to CVine News Network. This is Linda Forsythe, and today I have a great guest that's going to be with us today that's going to discuss a few things that went on having to do with the impeachment. Today was day 4 of President Trump's impeachment trial, and I absolutely love the defense and what they brought up, what they did. They really kicked butt today. And so the gentleman I have joining us is Greg Britton. And Greg Britton is a cabinet member with the Redlands Tea Party Patriots. He's a co-host of Unite Inland Empire Radio with Don Dix, which is heard Saturdays at 4 p.m. and Sundays at 4 p.m. That's Pacific time, and 10 p.m. on AM 590, The Answer. And in his spare time, he practices business and property law. So the guy's a lawyer. Anyway, I brought him on today because I wanted to ask him a couple of questions about some of the procedures and everything that went on today during the actual procedures. What was your take right off the top, Greg? And welcome. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, please do. Thanks for asking me. Well, first of all, to understand impeachment, it has some of the trappings of a judicial proceeding, but it's not one. It is a political proceeding. It is a political exercise, and that's inherent in its structure, where elected politicians decide to impeach in the House of Representatives, decide to impeach somebody, and then elected senators decide whether to convict, quote unquote, the person who has been impeached. So it's political from the get-go. You would never have sworn partisans, as our members of Congress and senators are, deciding cases in a judicial context. And they can make it, they have rules, but they made them up for Schumer and McConnell got together and decided on the rules for this impeachment. So understand that from the get-go.
Well,
and I think also understand is I don't think the Democrats ever thought that they were going to get 2/3 of the Senate, which would require 17 Republican senators to vote to convict Donald Trump, who has more than 90% approval rating among Republicans, among their voters. A few have broken with President Trump and voted with the Democrats, but I don't think in their wildest dreams they ever thought they were going to get 67 votes in the Senate, which is necessary to actually convict him. It's a political show trial. They intend to try to publicize their allegations against Donald Trump and make him, if not legally ineligible to hold future office, just as a practical matter, make it that way, and to divide Republicans. So you already have the talk of, there's been a talk of the Donald Trump or his people would split off. There are reports that, quote, centrist, unquote, Republicans are thinking about forming their own party. So to further division among the Republicans is probably also part of the Democrats' goal.
Well, that's an understatement. And in fact, it's quite obvious what kind of a political stunt this is. One of the things that I found was interesting is after the actual impeachment trial, it was all over Fox News at the top of the page. And as soon as it was over, and I think the defense really kicked butt, all of a sudden, you know what's at the top of the page? New York Governor Cuomo and his COVID cover-up. So all of a sudden, everything else having to do with the impeachment trial, which was like a great big thing to them, was just dropped down to the bottom. And one of the other things that they stated, which is absolutely true, because I watched it, it said Trump's team says liberals could be impeached for their past comments under Democrat standards. And in fact, the way they held their feet to the fire, bringing out truth and evidence showing blatant news manipulation that was orchestrated to fit the left's narrative. Now, you're an attorney. I don't know if you're a trial lawyer, but maybe you could answer something for me. If the other side brings up evidence and or anything that they're going to be demonstrating, What if it's false evidence? What if it's manipulated? What if it isn't true? Isn't that rather frowned upon?
Well, yes and no. To get evidence admitted in court, you'd have to show that it's authentic. So I want to show a video. Okay, you need to lay some authentic. Someone has to come in and testify from personal knowledge that this video truly, fairly, and accurately represents what it depicts. Same with that. Same with a document. That this document is genuine. This is actually a real email or a real tweet. Now they were caught doing that. They were caught manipulating Donald Trump's tweets for as quote evidence unquote in their impeachment case. They selectively edited the video. They would stop. They'd play Donald Trump's speech from January 6th. They would stop it at one point, such as, for example, right before he said, "Go to the Capitol and peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard." So you left that out. Another
It's a
classic
biggie.
example was back in the George Zimmerman case, where they edited out when the dispatcher asked Zimmerman, "What does this man look like?" And then he says, he's black. They left that out, so it looked like Zimmerman was this racist calling in to report a black man, when the only reason he said that was when the dispatcher asked for the man's description. So that's deceptive editing in the video. In the video, they did the same thing in the impeachment trial. And my view is, when you have to lie, when you have to deceive, and you have to mislead, then you don't have a case. Now, that being said, in court, people lie all the time, and there's typically no consequence to that, even when they get caught red-handed, testifying and perjuring themselves in court. Usually there is no perjury. Prosecutions are very, very rare, especially in civil cases. So they get away with it, and their media runs with it. You know, the old saying, and I think one of Trump's attorneys brought it up, is that a lie makes it halfway around the world before the truth gets its shoes on. So and I see attorneys do that in cases, that they'll just say things that aren't true and are later proven not to be true, but you try to make an initial impression, especially with a jury, of something is so. And then if it doesn't pan out, you may have already made that initial impression with the jury. My view is, I think you ultimately undermine your credibility with the jury, but there are certainly attorneys that practice that way.
When you're in a situation of attempting to impeach a president, and blatantly throwing your credibility under a bus constantly on an ongoing basis, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the classic form of gaslighting constantly. Dealing with somebody who does gaslighting, I mean, you're not going to win an argument. There's no way that's really going to happen with constant gaslighting. So the only way things could change is what happened today, is that the defense team showed side by side what Trump said and what the mainstream media showed, and edited out, versus what really happened. And so even though they continue to play their games, doing exactly what it is they're doing, it's showing the American people, or the world actually, what they're doing, so they can continue with their gaslighting until the cows come home. But more and more people are becoming obviously wise to the games that they're playing.
Well,
Is there any hope with that?
I'm not sure that's right, because
Okay.
they're going to people. First of all, I think people are just not paying attention to this. The vast majority of people are paying very little, if any, attention to this. The only reason I looked at it was I know we were going to talk about it on today's show. Otherwise, I have not watched a second of this impeachment proceeding, because I know it's just a political show trial, total BS. Donald Trump, by any legal standard, by any statute, did not incite violence. His statements, his speech on January 6th was 100% constitutionally protected under the First Amendment. Not a question about it. And we can talk about actual urging people to commit violence and break the law in many instances is First Amendment protected unless there is an imminent threat of violence or law breaking. And there's a whole series of U.S. Supreme Court cases, beginning with Brandenburg versus Ohio in the late 60s, early 70s, and continuing to the present. So for all those, I know it's total BS. I know it's not going anywhere. The only real question is how many traitorous Republican senators are going to hopefully end their political careers and vote with the Democrats for this political BS impeachment. And we had some of the usual suspects. And they added in the initial vote on constitutionality in the impeachment trial, they added Senator Bill Hagerty of Louisiana. That was something of a surprise. The other five are Murkowski, Romney, Pat Toomey, who's retiring, Susan Collins, and one other whose name escapes me at the moment. Usual suspects of rhino liberal Republicans. So that's the only real interest to me, is how many Republicans are going to join into this BS. I don't think any Democrat's going to break ranks, even if they wanted to. They just realize all of their people favor this, and since it's not going anywhere, there's no harm in voting for it.
Okay, well, that's interesting because this has been going, I mean, this type of crap, frankly, has been going on for the last 4 years. And people have been saying this isn't going to go anywhere. And, they constantly don't, they're not able to follow through, the left is, with what it is they're attempting to accomplish, but yet Biden's in office. So I hear what you're saying, and I am celebrating it that, okay, it's not going to go anywhere, but I'm looking at Biden in office. So what is it that you think is going to happen?
With the impeachment, or, I mean, I think Biden is in office for a wide, much broader range of things than their various BS charges. Trump-Russia collusion, which they ran for a number of years, the first impeachment for Trump-Ukrainian collusion, and so on. So I think that stuff did not play a significant role in the outcome. The massive vote fraud, and as Time Magazine ran an article this past week, which basically acknowledged that the entire ruling class put aside its differences to unite to defeat Donald Trump, and doing everything they possibly could to restore ruling class first in place of America first under Donald Trump.
Wasn't that a confession?
Kind of. I mean, they didn't actually confess to vote fraud, but that was just another part of what they did. Now,
yes,
I believe that we'll see what happens in the case. I think that Donald Trump's attorneys are not going to make the case that, yes, there really was massive vote fraud, and the election was stolen. I think they're not going to try to do that in the impeachment case. And we shall see whether they do that or not, because part of what the Democrats' argument is that Donald Trump ginned up the mob, not just by what necessarily go over and attack the Capitol, which he did not say, but by, in the Democrats' version of it, lying to his supporters that there was vote fraud. Now, I'm not sure they're going to address that. I wish they would. I wish they would take this opportunity, and every opportunity, to publicize and explain the evidence in favor of the vote fraud, which largely has not been reviewed and examined and presented in any detail. Now, to the extent that no one's watching, does it really make a difference? But you make the record, and maybe somebody out there actually, oh, gee, I didn't know that. I didn't know that Pennsylvania counted about 200,000 more votes than votes that were cast. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that 40,000 people in Nevada voted twice, and so on. That may, just little facts get into people's bubbles. We all live in a bubble to some extent. Some people's bubbles are more impermeable than others. But you get a little fact in there, and some people may start asking questions. Well, was the election really honest? Was it really an honest election? And so my advice would be to urge Donald Trump to present the evidence in this forum, and in any forum that you possibly can present the evidence of the vote fraud, not necessarily because the election is going to be turned over and Donald Trump, as right as he should be, inaugurated as president, but unless there's a widespread understanding that the election was stolen, there is massive vote fraud, then there's no clamoring, there's no incentive, there's no motivation, there's no great public outcry for reforms to ensure honest elections. So the more you can convince people, yes, there really is a problem. Maybe it wasn't enough maybe it didn't make the difference this time. But when you have things like 50,000 votes on flash drives that go missing, whether that made the difference or not, that's not how to conduct an election. That's not how do you assure people that you're having an honest election when you have 50,000 votes on flash drives that disappear.
I see that most of the American people, at least that watch and pay attention,
Both
can
of them.
see that. Here is my concern. I'm going to use 9/11 as an example. That was a pretty horrific situation. And I've been covering the tribunals in Guantanamo Bay. They are still in the pretrial phase. They're still trying constantly. They haven't even gone to trial yet. It's been 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to sit here and do these talking points and these debates, and we're going to have to show them and have to prove a situation, we're still questioning the John F. K. assassination. When is this going to bring justice? When is this ongoing BS of what is going on to sidestep the law without bringing justice? What is it going to take for that to stop? Or is this going to go on whatever? Do you think that Biden being president is going to last us for 4 years, 2 years, another month? I mean, I was told today that we've got all kinds of illegal aliens just crossing the border right now in thousands because Biden opened up the borders.
Correct.
Okay, so let's just, keep arguing this stuff with impeachments and everything else under God's little green acres. When are we going to deal with the circumstances at hand? I mean, what's it going to take? Okay, I'm done with my rant.
Okay. On our radio show, we often quote Justice Louis Brandeis, who said, among other things, that the most important political office is what?
The most important. Okay, please repeat that. The most important.
What is the most important political office?
The most important political office?
Yes.
The president. No?
I disagree with that, and so does Justice Brandeis, who said that the most important political office is that of the private citizen. Mm-hmm. And while the politicians and the ruling class and woke corporations and all the whole gamut deserve all of the criticism that they get, ultimately that we are at the precipice of losing the republic and losing our freedom and losing our country is because not enough people are both understand that they held the most important political office and then of course are not fulfilling the obligations of that most important political office. So what it's going to take to right those things you just mentioned and to save the country is going to be a quantum level improvement both in numbers and effectiveness of people fulfilling the obligations of their most important political office. And in our own small way, on my radio show, on your show, on things I write, and what we do in the Redlands Tea Party Patriots, we try to do things. One is, yes, this is you hold the most important political office, and two, we all need to step up our performance in that office.
That is an understatement. And while the silent majority isn't quite as silent as they were, they're still not vocal enough. They're still not taking action enough. And I think this is actually a good place for our show to end this evening. I would like to have you on again, Greg, because I mean, your knowledge.
Talk to my agent.
Happen to know who that is. But it's unbelievable how things are going, but I think you're absolutely correct. We do hold the most important political office because we, the people, are the ones that are in charge that put these individuals in.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to be able to step up, we need to step up more because they're trying to silence our voice.
Yep.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us. You can see C-Vine News every single day on our website at c-vine.com. Please go there. You can read all the most recent news stories. We have all our volunteers that are updating that multiple times during the day. So have a good day, everybody. We'll see you next time.